Ain't it a crime?
What?
The only person who could ever mess with this gun would be the sucker with the bread to buy it. You just wait out there, sissies. We're coming. And we're ready.
The following program is rated TV MAL. It contains strong language and is intended only for mature audiences.
They're coming to get you, Bobber.
Go right on in.
Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up.
The Beer Brothers are back, and you are watching Brains
and Brews.
I am Joe, the psychologist. This is my brother Rick. Rick, what's up?
Am I ready for this? Come on, son.
The one we're going to be discussing is 1978 George Romero's follow-up to Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead. This is directed and written by George Romero. I mean, it's the man. The movie stars David Emge as Flyboy Steven, Ken Foree, one of Rick's favorite, as Peter, Galen Ross as Fran or Franny, and Scott Reiniger as Roger or Trooper. But before we get into the movie, I mean, this is Brains and Brews. We gotta talk about what we are drinking. And I finally got the assignment right.
Let me tell you, man, all month I've been waiting to see what brew you're gonna bring tonight. Because the first time you had Miller Lite.
I know.
Then that was
I was doing dry January. So I mean, I did find an IPA. It was non-alcoholic. So yeah, and I went to the store. I started looking around. I didn't want to go for any names that I can actually just recognize right off the bat. So I went to ABC Liquor and I was looking around, and it's from Golden Road Brew. Mango Cart is the name of it. It is based on the street fruit carts in Los Angeles. So I wanted something for the summer, you know, when you're drinking out there, just not to be regular beer. So I kind of like my beers to have a tropical flavor to it. It's supposed to be mango.
Take that sip, kid. Take that sip.
Taste the actual alcohol in that. And it's actually really good. It's light, super light. A lot of IPAs can sometimes be thick. After you drink that, you do get that mango like right in the back. Now your home all tastes like mango, which is good. I love mangoes. Yeah, it's super good. So yeah, Mango Cart from Golden Road Brewery. What are you drinking, brother?
Brother, this time I went out and got me Dogfish Head. It's 60-minute IPA because I have to do an IPA. 6.0, that's alcohol volume on this guy right here. So it's a little bit on the stronger side of things. Let's take a sip. Let's take a sip. We all cheer. Big bottles of beer. Salud, brother. Yeah, definitely IPA, a beer you can get at a restaurant. Because I have seen these before. I never actually ordered it before because I like sticking to what I know when I go out and eat. But yeah, not bad. We'll see how it goes as the night goes along. But so far, so good. And it's got an emblem of a shark on it. And I'm a big shark lover, as you know. Dogfish Head 60-minute IPA. That's what Ricky Grimes is going to be sipping on as we talk about Dawn of the Dead. Let's go, okay? Let's go.
I can't wait. I can't wait. How did Romero differentiate Dawn from Night for you?
Let's take it back to the beginning real quick. I want to definitely bring this to light because I talked about this film prior, but I didn't get to all the details. Now, imagine you're George Romero back in 1978. Night of the Living Dead was, by that time, it blew up, right? And he's made films in between that are non-horror in a sense. He didn't want to get really just typecast into only doing that. But they didn't really take off as much. He was getting a lot of calls for years to do a follow-up on Night of the Living Dead because he didn't want to just make a sequel. He wanted to have a foundation, an idea, and he wanted the time to be right. And lo and behold, he had a friend that owned the Monroeville Mall over in Pittsburgh. They took him on a tour, and he's looking around this mall, and of course, what he's thinking of, man, like he's looking at all like the crawl spaces, all the supplies in there, all the hiding spaces of food, guns, ammo, you name it, all the merchandise that you could live off of. And he said, imagine being shacked up in a mall during a zombie apocalypse. Now, keep in mind, the malls were pretty new at the time. Consumerism was on the rise.
Yep.
And that's what gave him the spark to do a zombie film set in a mall. And then Dario Argento called them up as well and said, hey, I'm gonna fly you to Italy, write this movie. So he flew to Italy for a week, penned this film in a week, came back, and lo and behold, we got Dawn of the Dead. Obviously, the black and white film Night of the Living Dead dealt with a lot of the times racism being a real big part of that era. Here, we mentioned it, consumerism was huge coming up. So that's the basis from this film, and that's how I, kind of compare the two as being different in a sense, because of course Day of the Dead will deal with the 80s and all the shit that's going on there in that era. So the 70s going into the 80s was big as far as commercialism, consumerism, all that stuff. And yeah, that's the major difference on that.
You said it, the first one was black and white and this one was in color, so you got to see the gore so much more prettier. I mean, I love a black and white movie, but just to see the gore, the entrails, the blood, just everything, it was just fucking awesome.
Fun fact, you know what's funny about that? You mentioned the gore and stuff, right? When they came up with the makeup, the first film was in black and white. The zombies were all black and white. Now they had to put them in color, so he made them all gray. But on camera, they look blue, which they didn't know that was going to happen. Again, we're talking about the late 70s. It's not like they could redo it or fix it up in post with CGI or whatever. So that's why a lot of the zombies, if you watch the film, are kind of funny looking, blue, grayish, greenish at times. So, but you mentioned the color. That's the first thing that popped into my mind.
Oh, I loved it. Like when I just got to see the color. But the biggest difference that I saw was character development, and Dawn of the Dead was huge. You introduce these characters because when it all starts, there's stuff in the news going on. You've got the raid. It's kind of when I'm watching and going, wow, they're saying a lot of stuff that you probably can't say right now. It was like literally as I'm watching, which cop I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, like, okay.
Come on, Martinez.
But that's what I saw the big difference. The one thing that made me love this movie just even more. We talked about it in other movies we've done. Sometimes we want to know a little about the character, and sometimes we don't. But there's some good movies that you want to know about the characters, and then you don't get that, and which is a rarity. This one did it. Roger became like my favorite character.
Roger.
Yes, because he started out he was witnessing everything in the tenement. So, he had a little bit morals, but he was still kind of a tough guy. And he kind of kept it together towards the beginning. But then when they went to go get the trucks to block the mall entrances, and then he got attacked by the zombie. I'm sorry, the ghoul. Are we calling it a zombie?
It's zombie. It's a zombie.
We're gonna do a zombie. All right.
Yeah, of course. It's
so
George.
All right, just making sure. When he's getting attacked by the zombie, it was like he looks genuinely fucking scared. When Peter shoots him and the blood gets all over him, like that scene, he completely panicked. And from there, you saw his character wasn't making like the smart decisions he was doing before.
Not anymore. Yeah, he lost.
And then he lost it. And
he got too cocky.
And it was, for me, in this movie, that was one of my favorite sequences.
Yeah.
Was him, like, just because that's when he got bit in the arm, got bit in the leg. Honestly, even though they didn't show it, Roger's death was kind of sad for me. And you knew it was coming, but you knew it was coming when, you got the scene and he looks up and there's Peter who's been sitting there waiting.
That's his buddy, yeah.
It's his buddy. And so, yeah, for me, it was the fact that he took time to develop these characters.
Yep.
We were rooting for all of them. Again, it's not questionable people. These were all, good people were put in a situation. Which, speaking of situations, you mentioned them all. This
Not
movie,
just playing with your left, you're playing with mine.
this fucking movie, besides just these great characters, also had two other characters which Rick mentioned in the beginning, which is the mall. Like the mall was a character all in its own.
1000%.
And the soundtrack for this, like literally when I was listening to it, it reminded me of The Last House on the Left, where you had like the serious, and then it was like this like cartoony music, like back and forth. You had the carnival music in there.
You know what? Real quick, when I first saw this movie as a kid, I hated it because of the music. I didn't know any better. I thought, how is this a horror movie? This is so comical. But I didn't realize that music was from the mall. They turned the volume up over the PA so they could distract the zombies while they did their thing, and that's the mall music.
It was great.
So genius. Yes,
it is.
And the best part about it is, again, it's a guerrilla filmmaking at its best. They didn't have a composer. They got Goblin, who is known for their Italian horror movies. Dario Argento uses them for all his films. Between that and all the library music they use, they didn't have to pay for any of that. They don't have to pay no royalty. They just pick whatever they could because that's all they could afford. And it's so memorable because of that.
In the middle of things, all of a sudden you hear "attention shoppers." I'm sitting there like it's great because
Yes.
you know music is a great thing. A
We all
soundtrack
relate to that.
It's great because it goes in and out,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's good to have a in some horrors everything stays in that I guess scary kind of music. Where this one just it took you in and out of the moments, but it was done in a way to fuck with your senses basically as you're watching this movie. To be honest with you,
You can't have this film without the mall, and you cannot have this movie without the soundtrack. You can't take this out and replace it with a professional score. It won't work, in my opinion. This is a sign of the times. This is like a time capsule, bro. You watch this film, it's like you're teleported back to this era, and you just can't get that feeling anymore. Even with the bad effects at times, or all the mistakes and the errors that you can pick up. Of course, I pick up on this shit. I see this movie hundreds of times.
I was gonna say, when you've seen it so many times,
it adds to the charm of the film.
The scene where the raiders show up and they're fighting the zombies, and it's literally fucking circus music.
Yeah.
Like the scene's supposed to be like they're fighting actual zombies. We should be like scared at that moment, but it was actually kind of for me was just kind of a little bit the setup for when our group of heroes were actually going to start fighting them, because the music didn't stay circus the whole time during that, right?
No.
It did eventually. Once they started fighting each other, the music changed.
George was brilliant at weaving the music in and out when it was appropriate. And one thing you mentioned with this is you keep saying heroes. This movie is a comic book come to life, bro. We got 4 main characters. You kept bringing this up and I kept thinking about it. 4 main characters we spend all this time with. Just 4.
Mm-hmm.
From the moment the movie starts, the chaotic nature of that whole newsroom, which I love that scene, man. All the people talking in the background. You got George's cameo. Great stuff.
That was them in the front, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I thought it was him.
Yeah,
And then, I know she's like, I'm fucking trying. Right?
Yeah.
I thought it.
You can tell it's George. He's got the scarf. That's George, man.
All right.
So.
I thought that was him.
He's in all the films. He has some kind of cameo. Did he have one? Yeah, he did have one in Data Dead as well. But anyway, these 4 characters, you with them from the very beginning to the very end. And when you said when Roger, he gets bit and he dies, not only does Peter feel it, but we as the audience, we feel it. We spend so much time with them, and then the time passes slowly in the mall. They were in that mall for a while. You could tell by the room itself, the way it kept upgrading over time. When the movie's over, you feel sad because, oh man, you spent like an hour and 40 whatever minutes this movie is, 2 hours.
2 hours and 16, which I'm not. Here's another thing. It is a long movie. I'm not complaining.
I don't feel like it to me because this movie's structured in a way where to me, there's no lulls. Everything flows so smooth from one transition to the next.
The sad part is that malls are dying. I forgot what we were reviewing that we talked about Night of the Comet. And after Dawn of the Dead and Night of the Comet, I mean, of course I'm gonna go to a fucking mall.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the malls are like, there's a lot of closed stores, but you won't have as much access like they had here. But I thought about that. I'm like, fuck yeah, that's exactly where I would think of heading.
Amazing. And the brilliant part about that too, you mentioned the Raiders, that the thing with this, they had a good thing going, right? The Raiders came in because they wanted. Now their downfall was Steven, Flyboy. He got too engrossed with all the materialism, right?
Yep.
He saw them tearing up the mall, breaking shit. He couldn't take it because it was his.
Yep.
He didn't want to share it.
Yep.
And he just flipped out. He fucked everything up. Got himself killed. They lost the mall. And the ending was bleaker because this film ended with Franny putting her head up into the propellers and her head got fucking massacred, and Peter shoots himself. That's the original ending to this film. No one survived. As George was putting it together, chopping it up in the editing process,
he realized
I like these characters so much. I don't want to harm them. We lost 2 already. Let's let Peter and Franny live it out.
Fuck, that would have been a controversial ending. A good ending, though, if you really think
he did
about
it already, though,
like,
with Night of the Living Dead. He didn't want to have 2 bleak endings back to back. And
it's
what I
kinda
did
true.
like about Dawn's ending, it's so ambiguous where you don't know where they went. Where
Right.
are they? Are they still around? Like, you don't know what happened to Peter and Franny.
That's
so
very
you
true.
can make your own stories. Trust me, as a kid, I did. Peter and Franny were out. They had so many adventures. You know what I'm saying?
Meanwhile, I was thinking about them flying around. I'm like, shit, now they have to fly around and find gas and keep trying to find other other people that hopefully are going to try to, oh no, The Walking Dead. It's The Walking Dead. You mentioned the name earlier when you were talking, and this is something that I put a little note for myself. Tom Savini is in this movie. If you do not know who Tom Savini is, then smack yourself right now. Just go ahead and smack yourself. And then go ahead and look it up, because you're going to find out that, dude, first of all, did you know that this is Tom Savini's second acting role?
You asking me?
I'm telling you. Or did you know that? Or
yeah, well, I have George's entire catalog of films.
Oh, yeah, because that's funny, because I know.
Funny thing. His first acting role is my next horror film.
I was gonna say that. I'm like, I did notice, because I never heard of the name, and then I'm like checking. I'm like, dude, Tom Savini's in this, and
yes.
I'm like, Martin,
the actor who plays Martin, was in this film. He was Martinez. They took a white guy, painted him tan, give him a wig and a fake beard, and called him Martinez.
Is that him?
Yeah, that's him.
And the worst part, that was probably one of the worst makeups out of all the things in
yes,
that
horrible
makeup. That was the worst makeup in this fucking movie. Was that?
That's what I love about it. He was the casting director of this film. He was in charge of getting all the zombie actors. So they needed a guy to play Puerto Rican. So they didn't have no Puerto Ricans. I said, paint this guy up.
Oh my God.
And he was also the crate monster. Not crate. I'm sorry. He was the zombie in Creepshow in the segment Father's Day. He played the zombie in that film, and he was also in Night Riders. He was the jester in that film. So he's in all of George's films and all types of small roles, but he's awesome. John Amplis, big shout out to you, man.
Well, it seems like Tom did a lot with George.
So Tom, yeah, he played Blade. He was Blades in this film. He did the makeup. He did stunts. The scene where you like when Roger had the zombie in the not the cockpit. What do you call the truck? The little the cabin. What do they drive? The cabin. What do you call that shit? Whatever. The cabin of the truck. When come on, I'm a little buzzed. I was gonna say when the walker was on him. When the zombie was on Roger, and Peter's like, "Get its head up, Roger. Get its head up." And Roger puts the head up, and Peter shoots it. And when he kicks the zombie out of the car, that's Tom Savini with a wig flying out the car. There's another scene here when the truck hits that zombie and the zombie flies across the screen. That's Tom Savini. If you pause it, you can see the trampoline that he's jumping off of.
Oh no! Well,
yeah, dude,
again, this is the old. But yeah, I mean, I just thought it was fucking awesome to see this guy as an icon.
Have you ever seen Land of the Dead by George?
It's been a bit. Again, like I said,
I love it. No, it's cool because in Land of the Dead, the zombies are smarter than that, obviously. That's the whole point of that film. There's a zombie in there that's supposed to be Tom Savini's character, Blades, from this film, as a zombie showing up in that movie. So he's in there with the knife, with the blade and everything. So, yeah, go ahead, man. I want to hear more about what you got to say about Tom, because he deserves it.
It had been so long since I've seen this movie, like I said. So, as soon as I saw him on the screen, what I actually flashed back to was his role in Dust Till Dawn. Because his character, he's in there. He plays a really memorable character in that one. So when I saw him, I went to Sex Machine. But I'm like, dude, this is makeup. I mean, he does makeup, special effects.
Making Dawn of the Dead, he said to him, it was Halloween 24/7 on set. Because if he wasn't making up zombies, he was acting. If he wasn't acting, he was doing stunts. If he wasn't doing stunts, he was choreographing other stunt scenes. He was all over this film. Like, that's what I love about this film. The actors played many roles on top of what they had to do on film too. Well, not all of them, but a majority of them. Like a lot of the zombies here who were extras were a lot of the biker gang was a real biker gang. They didn't pay these guys. They would never get away with that today. They had motorcycles in the fucking mall, bro. You know what? They were fucking up that floor, bro.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the army in this movie, real. That's real army. They didn't pay nobody. Those are not actors. They were like, hey, we're making a movie. You guys mind if you could have a few scenes? Yeah. That's what I love about this movie. He didn't pay for the mall. He didn't pay for the bikers. He didn't pay for nothing. Like, this movie made with passion and just a sign of the times. You can never make a movie like this. And to this, never in this day, never will be done again, brother. That's why I love this fucking film.
Here's the thing that I noticed now that you say that. So when you have this scene where they're showing the military people and they're all sitting there talking,
like, I'm the man.
They're all talking over each other.
I love that. Yeah.
There's nobody talking, and I'm sitting there like,
that's George. That's pure George.
And I'm like sitting going, I'm like, these are like total extras that George said. All right, just start having, and nobody like conferred with each other to pretend. Let's have this. They just started talking out loud.
Coffee, smoking a cigarette.
Dude, there was one guy who kept like with the coffee. His hand
Yeah,
was
yeah.
burned. He's like,
Yes.
I'm like, this guy, like, is your hand not on fire right now?
Yeah, bro. The
But-
beauty of George is he shoots everything, and whatever he wants to use, he uses. That's what I love about his style of filmmaking.
Speaking of George, because I said it when we did the Night of the Living Dead, and you've been saying it a couple times. Once again, you know, George is the master of putting a social commentary in a movie without it being smeared on your face the way that movies are done now. You know, after you watch it a couple times, you could probably figure that out. However, you know, as you said, it was about consumerism, the downfall of Steven. When they were raiding the place, I was paying attention. They weren't stealing anything that would have been for survival. You're not gonna have electricity soon. Why are you stealing electronics? I mean,
Bro.
but it was the people having a moment to, oh, if I'm gonna steal, let me steal something without actually thinking.
Yeah.
Let me steal something I'm gonna need. No, most of them, especially Steven, as you said, were worried about the more like superficial shit. And I thought that was great. If you walk in the mall and just stay still for a second, people are walking around slowly, still
bro.
like that, looking around. You still see that.
I'm so glad you brought that up, bro. That's the metaphor. The zombies in this film are the zombies now. People that go to the mall, they're zombies. They're instinct. They're just following instinct, consumerism. They just want to have all the materialistic things in their life to make them feel better, bro. And you don't need that stuff. And that's what George is trying to convey in this film.
And he did. A horror movie can comment on our times. Subtle, in your face kind of way, because it was a little bit in the face, but still subtle enough that if you weren't looking for the message in this movie, you would have missed it.
Yes, look at the characters in here. You mentioned the big racist guy, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can never get away with that now. And by the way, his head explosion was so cheesy, but so memorable. The fact that these guys go in there, they don't want it. They're just breaking shit. They're stealing mannequins, they're stealing a shirt and tie, and he throws it back because they didn't want it. The guy checking his blood pressure. I mean, this is stupid stuff. There's a pie fight. Why? That wasn't in the script. George just said, you know what? It's not a fucking pie fight. Why not? You know what I'm saying?
The blood pressure thing had me cracking up.
It had to be a Hispanic like that.
It had me cracking up. You know, after you see it still, like the arm's still there and it's gushing and it's still trying to do the
And I could talk about Peter, Fran, Steven, and Roger all day, all night. I could talk about Blades. I could talk about Sledge, who was the other guy with the big sledgehammer. I mean, there's so much to dive into this film, whether it's the mall, it's the character and the behavior, the fact that they dealt with abortion in this film.
Yep.
And it's a lot of stuff that you can't get away with now, and that's the beauty of this film, that it was made in a time where, and I said it's a time capsule. You watch this film, it encapsulates everything perfectly. You know, it's a zeitgeist from that era, and it's beautiful, man. And if you haven't seen it now, keep an open mind, because it's not going to hold up as well as the Dawn of the Dead remake. But don't look at it that way. Ignore the technical flaws, but enjoy the artistry, the freedom.
We're old enough we saw this so many years ago. If we watch an old movie, we know how to put our mindset back into that time and not try to compare it to, like, you know, the CGI and the special effects we have now. No, you're watching a movie of that time.
No
so
CGI.
Don't compare, don't critique it. And it's still this fucking movie was awesome. I'm glad. I'm glad that you said let's do this one.
George Romero edited this movie with fucking film and scissors, cutting it and taping it, putting it together. There was no computers he made this on. Keep that shit in mind. They seem to forget back then what it was like. So this movie here is timeless. It's the movie that got me into horror. The gonk.
Right now, this one stands on the top of my list for character development in a zombie movie. Just to wrap it up, I'm gonna take one more sip here.
Let's take our sip.
As that goes down, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Hope you enjoyed the show.
But just take a look at this.
On our next episode, we're going to take a train. Train to where? Well, you'll just have to wait and find out. Rick, what do we cheer for?
We all cheer. What's in a bottle? What the fuck? Hold on. Big bottles of beer. I'm Ricky Grimes.
And I am Joe the Psychologist. Until next time, don't get thick.
Guessing these devils be savages. Slimmed and unchanced with the averages. Sitting on the low like you added slick. Darkness make you disappear like a magic trick. Pull up to the table, come down and sit. These devils try to tie you the crown with it. Now you surrounded by counterfeits, trying to chop you up into 1,000 bits.